Hey everyone! In today's tutorial, I am going to play with a new to me product, which was a gift from my crafty friend Ileana, very sweet, for Christmas, and that is the Nuvo Glimmer Paste, which is absolutely beautiful and a little bit addicting. First, I want to talk to you a little bit about die cutting before I use this beautiful paste. I have changed the way that I've been die cutting since I've been using these beautiful, intricate dies. And I just wanted to share this with you because you don't need anything except what comes with your Big Shot to get beautiful, intricate cuts. Now, we're going to keep both pieces, but you'll notice that my die is sitting on a clean, never used plate, and it is cutting side up. And then I put my paper down, and then I put a grungy plate on top. And if you always do that every single time you die cut, your die cuts will be perfect. The little intricate pieces will come right out with your hands. You don't need any accessory to get them out. They cut all the way through every time and is 100% foolproof. If you're trying to line up a stamp and die image, you can do that a couple ways. You can use washi tape to hold the die in place around the stamped image and then flip it so it's cutting side up on a clean plate. Or you can use your MISTI. Just die cut a blank piece of paper, put the negative space and the positive die cut back into your MISTI in the corner, line up your stamp, and stamp directly onto the die cut. But this will give you perfect cuts every time. You don't need a special platform. You don't need a special plate. 2 plates and your normal platform, and you'll have perfect die cuts every time. So I'm using one of the new detailed thinlet sets from the Upcoming Occasions mini catalog. If you need a catalog, just contact me. Starts on January 4th. And you can see that I've kept the positive and negative pieces of this detailed thinlet, and that is important for what we're doing today. First, I'm going to tape down a card panel to my grid paper, lining it up with the grid paper. And I have a little room to add the tape because of this little tab on this die cut. That's going to be a blank space anyway, and so it lets me keep my cardstock secure and line up this die cut perfectly. So this is going to act as a stencil or a mask, depending on how you look at it. And I'm just going to tape that down on top. When you're using embossing paste, you want every single element to be really secure on your mat. And now to make sure that I only get the floral design with the embossing paste, I'm going to fit the negative space back around this positive die cut. And you'll want to play with this a little bit. Make sure that each part of the die cut is popped into that frame, just so you can keep your embossing paste as clean as possible. And then you'll tape that cardstock down again. Then you'll notice that some of it's sticking up, so you'll want to fiddle with it a little bit. And this is just to keep the edges clean, and it's really no big deal if they're not 100% perfectly clean. I'll show you how to fix that. But you do want it to be back snug in its original spot as well as you can do it when you tape it down. That'll just keep you from having accidents. Now, paper, I will say with cardstock, you're going to see throughout this video that using a cardstock and a die cut isn't as crisp as using a stencil, just because of the depth of the cardstock and the fact that it absorbs water. But it's great if you want to use some of your new dies. It works just fine, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a handmade card. So the first color I'm using is this gorgeous Tanzanite lavender. All these pastes have precious gem names, and they are so sparkly and beautiful. This one is like a mostly purple, but it has a little ultramarine in it. And I'm using half of an Amazon gift card, and I'm just scraping the paste onto the open areas of the detailed die cut, easy as can be. One thing I found when working with this paste that I love, because I'm an impatient person, is that it dries really, really quickly. So that means a couple of things. 1, it's fun and easy to make cards with. 2, if you wait too long to clean your tools, you can get the paste off just by scraping them against each other. So I'm using 2 gift cards here today. and they were already dry by the time I went to the sink. So I just scraped them against each other and it all came right off. With the stencils, same thing. And you can see around the edges here on the left that I did have a little bit of space between my die cut and the negative space where there's going to be some embossing paste, but that's fine. I'll show you how to fix it. And then you just scrape the excess back into the jar. At first, I just put the lid on, and then I realized later that was a mistake, and I actually put that little insert back in. The insert has some sticky adhesive around the edge that helps it stay on the lid. And you'll want to keep that just to keep your lids nice. These containers are actually really beautiful. So now I'm going to remove the negative space first, carefully, and put that somewhere where a cat can't get it. Next comes the masking tape, and that will pull my whole detailed die cut off. And this is all sparkly and beautiful now, so you can actually use that on a card. Don't throw it away. And this is just Whisper White thick cardstock, and you can see it's not buckled. I think part of that is this paste drying so fast, and it really gives you a beautiful amount of detail. But if these little extra lines around the edge bother you, I just have a silicone tool here. This is a Creative Memories tool, I believe, that I've used forever. It can unstick anything. I love this tool. And I just keep it around for a variety of purposes. But you can scrape this paste off really easily and it leaves no color behind on your cardstock. Just let it dry a little bit. I found it was much easier to remove when it was a little bit dried. And since this is a real-time video, you can see how quickly it dries because it was dry by the time I went to scrape it. So that's what it looks like with cardstock. Now I have a piece of watercolor paper taped down. I'm using these 1/4 inch widths on the grid paper to line up the tape so that I have a border. And I have my decorative seasonal masks from Stampin' Up. These are so nice and sturdy and very inexpensive. As a matter of fact, this set is on sale right now through the end of the year and has some very fun designs. So I'm going to tape this down, and when you're taping a stencil down for a project like this, you want to make sure that each side is really tight as you tape it down. You don't want there to be any lift in the middle because you'll get better, cleaner results if it's as close to the paper as possible. Now the first color I'm going to use, I'm going to mix two. This is Sapphire Blue. It's just a beautiful deep blue. And since I'm opening these for the first time, I'm going to get all the product off the little insert. And then it gets stuck to my hands like that scene in Christmas Vacation where Clark has sap all over his hands. We just watched that. Our tradition, again, the other night. And I'm going to make sort of a diagonal ombre on this card, starting with the darkest blue. And just making sure that I get it into each one of these little paisley shapes, but also that I run the gift card along the top again to remove excess product from the stencil. This helps you use as much of the product as you can without wasting any, and it also makes it easier to clean your stencil. So I'll put the little insert back in and close that bottle, and then I'm going to open up the blue topaz, which is a spectacular turquoise color. Really bright and fun. And I'll sort of blend those two where they meet and drag them into each other, and then cover the balance of the card with the topaz. It's so pretty. I love it. And I'm not going all the way to the edge of the stencil because I can see, it's hard to see in the video, but I can see where the tape ends. And so I can see where my border is going to be, and I don't have to fill out every single bit of this because these stencils are larger than a card front, which makes it easier to use these repetitive patterns to cover a card. So I'll scrape all over the whole thing. Going over the line where they meet helps those two colors blend quite a bit. So I'm just checking here to make sure I covered all the open spots that don't have tape on them. before doing a final scrape to get the rest of the product off. And if I picked up a little bit of the darker blue and it goes back into the topaz container, that's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. And the little jars look like jewels themselves. Nuvo drops are like that too. I love their packaging. So I'll remove the tape very carefully. And on my mat, it's already dry. So it dries really quickly. It's a little bit thicker in the stencil. So that will take a little bit to dry. But look how crisp that is. And this is where you can see kind of the difference between using a stencil and using a die cut. But again, I say use them both because you have them both. So they don't have to be 100% clean. And then I just figure out which tape went down first. This is a last in, first out situation when you're removing masking tape. And I just hide those again from the cat. This is always dangerous filming when the cats are out and about. Now see here, I got the tape in the wrong order, but it didn't mess anything up. So I can just remove the last one. And you can see how beautiful and clean that is such a great design. So I definitely give the stencils the nod, but I really like this one too. So for the last one, I'm going to use the Moonstone, which is kind of their neutral iridescent. And I will use another stencil from the seasonal Decorative Masks. And this is on top of one of the backgrounds that I created. You might remember this for the Mixability Challenge with Saran Wrap. And I just had a few extra backgrounds laying around. So I thought I'd play with them with the paste. Now I loaded up my paste before I taped my stencil down. That wasn't very bright. So I'll do the same thing. Tape on top of tape. I'm going to keep 3M in business. You don't have anything to worry about. So if you work for 3M, you're safe. Now here I got a little bubble, so I need to smash it down, make sure it's tight. And then go around all 4 sides. You cannot have it too well stuck down, trust me. And I'm just going to use the Moonstone to give, on my finished card, this is going to be sort of a raindrop effect, even though this stencil really evokes snow a little bit more, but I'm going to use it in a different way. And it's so iridescent and glittery and awesome. So I'll just scrape off the extra. You can see I had a lot extra on there, so I have a lot to put back into the container. It just goes in there so easily. And then put the little dealy bopper back in there. And now I can lift this up. Now I have a little fingernail brush that I use when I wash my hands. It's like a little plastic bear that my mom got from Caswell and Massey, I think. But it's a nice little brush, and I sometimes use that brush to clean my stencils with ink or with embossing paste. And I try to get to this ink as quickly as I can after I've used a stencil. Now here I have a little border on this one as well, which you can just go cut that off if you don't want the border, if you want the entire background there, but I think it makes it look really clean. You can also die cut a frame with some square framelets to go around it, like a little stitched frame or something like that, which I might do, I don't know. But you can see how beautiful and shiny this is. I have 2 shiny elements on this background, and when this dries, it's going to be absolutely perfect. So I hope you enjoyed a quick look at Nuvo Glimmer Paste, and I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks so much for watching.